Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, and this week I want to talk about everyone's favorite anime being none other than Dragon Ball Z. And how can I not talk about DBZ without talking about Goku fans? Annoying, obnoxious, and everything in between, love him or hate him, there aren't a lot of sentences as synonymous with the power scaling community as nobody being Goku. I've been on both the receiving and offensive end of Goku tardiness. I think it's really funny to be like nobody being Goku. But with that being said, it's also very annoying to be on the receiving end of that stuff. So in the words of Thanos,
perfectly balanced. All things should be.
But anyways, Gokuism has taken a lot of shapes and forms, but the latest form that it's taken is a series of memes on the internet, and it's all about placing Goku in the middle of different anime events, typically in a situation where something bad is about to happen, and then they'll insert Goku and he'll proceed to win. And honestly, it's one of my favorite trends on the internet right now. I think it's very funny, and it's super satisfying to see Goku just beat the bad guy, you know? That's my inner 7-year-old talking, I guess. So I thought that today I would put Goku in some of these situations to see what would actually happen. The memes all very infamously have Namek Goku be the Goku to come in and save the day, so that's the version of Goku I'm going to keep it to. But if I need a stronger Goku to win, I'll mention what Goku is needed, if at all. But with that being said, I also had to pick what situations I would put Goku in, as there are numerous amounts of examples and memes I could pull from. But I narrowed it down to these four: the end of Stardust Crusaders, particularly around the Dio's World arc. I also put Goku up against Makima, right as power opens the door. I'll put Goku up against Sukuna, the current version of Sukuna from the manga as well. And lastly, but certainly not the least, I'll put Goku up against the Eclipse from Berserk, where he has to aid the Band of Hawk, as well as deal with the God Hand. But yeah, I chose these four because unlike most, these guys are all pretty hacksmongers, and we all know Goku is like super strong, so I think it's more interesting to put Goku up against hacksmongers rather than people that, you know, he's probably just gonna blitz in one shot. It's like, do you guys need me to tell you what would happen if Goku pulled up to Marineford? It's like, but yeah, all four of these guys have very unique abilities, and I think it's interesting to talk about if Goku has any real counter to that, besides his brute strength and speed. So join me today as we'll find out if Goku could really beat these guys, or has our beloved king bitten more than he can chew. But first, if you like the power scaling matchups, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. We post weekly videos and we cover a wide variety of topics, from Godzilla to Final Freddy's. This is the channel you want to be at. Be sure to follow all of my socials, and with all that garbage out the way, let's get into the video. Alright, so let's start off with the first of Goku's challenges, Dio Brando. Dio in the narrative of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is quite a monster, and it's for good reason. But if I had to narrow it down to three things, it would be his strength, his speed, and his standability. Like I said before, Dio is feared for his power, but I hope I don't have to tell you that his power and attack potency is nothing really special to Goku, unfortunately. Dio should scale above a base Jotaro, so as a baseline, he gets many building the large town level feats that he would upscale to various degrees. Dio should also upscale a washed up Jotaro from part 6. Jotaro should be able to upscale Weather Report during this arc, who can destroy the entire ozone layer, which will get him to around island level. But if we want to get into higher ends, Jotaro has many statements implying that he's the most powerful stand user in the world, meaning that at a high end, he would be able to upscale nobodies from part 5, who can freeze the entire ocean, which would be a feat calculated to be in the petons, if I remember correctly. This stand user was also in the A tier in terms of strength, and a dying Jotaro could blitz and bully other A tier stand users, granting Jotaro and by extension Dio at a high end around island to multi-continental scaling. Those ends are pretty high and they're kind of leaning towards wank, but we're putting them up against Goku, so just let him have it. But as for categories that are a little less lacking, we have his speed and standability. As for JoJo's speed during part 3, Dio and Jotaro should upscale nearly everybody. Like I said, Dio and Jotaro are comparable, but you can even make some arguments that Dio is faster than him during the start of the fight. Jotaro was able to fight on par with an amped Silver Chariot. This is very notable because even a base Silver Chariot was shown to be faster than a Beam of Light, but to what degree really depends on what continuity you use. If you want to use the manga, it's like relativistic to FTL, but if you use the anime scene, Silver Chariot literally statues the Beam of Light, and he sees it as frozen. When calculated, it's been determined that Silver Chariot was moving at around a low end of around 860 times faster than light, and at a high end, he would have been moving over 1200 times faster than the speed of light. So either MFTL or MFTL plus. Jotaro can react and catch attacks from this amped Silver Chariot while holding back, and Dio called him slow, granting Dio MFTL plus speed. And now for the moment you've all been waiting for. Yes, Dio's time stop. Dio at a bare minimum could use his time stop at around 5 seconds, and at maximum he can use it at around 9 seconds. While for most people this is a very short amount of time, you gotta remember, Dio and all these characters are moving at around MFTO plus speeds, so 9 seconds is literally an eternity during a fight. Dio in this state freezes everything around him, leaving his opponent completely vulnerable, and due to his vampiric nature, he can basically spam it, unlike Jotaro, who says heavy use of it can give him heart problems. I also want to note that Zeraldo works to a universal range, freezing everything everything in the entire universe during these periods of time. So Dio's got MFTO plus speed and hacks to a universal range. When you put it like that, he's kind of stacked. But what can Goku do against such an opponent? And I'm gonna be honest with all you guys, he would do fine, to be honest. Like I said, in this matchup, Dio's weak link is his attack potency and durability. I give you guys some extreme high ends, and it only came out to around multi-continental, which is pretty inconsequential to someone like Goku, especially when you have farther characters like King Vegeta triple planet busting. And as for speed now, it would be quite the issue if we were talking about early Dragon Ball. But Namek Saga is when you get the ridiculous speed scaling. Like for example, Goku was able to blitz King Kai's perception during his fight against Frieza. King Kai was able to track and perceive Goku while he was on his ship, moving from Earth to the edge of the universe in around 7 days. Even if you want to argue that this map isn't really to scale, all possible calculations get Goku's spaceship to around MFTL plus. And whereas Dio's like 1,000 times faster than the speed of light, Goku could be like in the millions. And here's an even funnier feat. Vegeta, Gohan, and Krillin could all sense the Ginyu Force as they were coming to planet Namek. These Frieza Force capsules are a lot faster than you think, as they were shown to traverse an entire galaxy during the events of Dragon Ball Super Broly. The Ginyu Force pod should be the same speed because it's the same tech and army, obviously, but the speed of Frieza's ship during the scene has been calculated to be around 42.9 billion times faster than the speed of light. And let me reiterate, jobbers who don't even scale to Super Saiyan Goku by the end of Namek could sense and perceive that. So unironically, Goku will be the one perceiving Dio as frozen. And unlike Dio, who likes to troll and have fun with his time stop, Goku don't play like that. And even if Dio got Goku in a time stop, he doesn't have the attack potency to do anything about it. He would just be punching a wall until his 9 seconds are up and Goku would just one-shot him. So as for Dio, Goku got that. But how about the other three? Alright, now we have Makima, and wait, give me a second. It's a little surreal to talk about her on the channel. A lot of my Instagram followers might remember me for having a really bad phase with her. Yes, I was a Chainsaw Man boy, but nowadays, I'm retired. These days, I'm more of a Kobeni guy. Yes, music to my ears. Alright, but moving on to the subject of Makima's attack potency and speed, and honestly, it's a lot worse than Dio's. Basically, she's around small building, the city block, but the highest end for her that isn't like Rat Wank is around small city level. She gets this high via upscaling the Gun Devil, as she was able to critically damage the Primordial Devil Darkness, which was stated to be stronger than the Gun Devil. There's also the fact that Makima beat the God Devil, so there's that as well. The Gun Devil is a character whose attacks have been calculated to be in the megatons, so that's why it's city level. As for speed now, Makima's consistently around Mass V Hypersonic, as she would upscale the Gun Devil once again. And I want to note that her own attacks have been calculated to be at around that speed, so it's all pretty consistent. But you could try to attempt to get her to relativistic, as she has an attack that may or may not be a beam of light. She scales to the speed of this attack kind of, as she could tag the true Chainsaw Man who can intercept it. And that's her base stats on a consistent level. But if we want to get into super high rank outliers, there's a statement that says that the true Chainsaw Man ate a star. Now, I want to note there are multiple translations. Some say he ate a star, some say he ate the light of the star. But assuming that he ate a star, Makima and nobody in the verse that we've seen wouldn't really scale to it. Even the Chainsaw Man we see, as the Chainsaw Man we see during this section of the manga is a weakened version of him, and he's far from his peak. And Makima was still losing to him, and she even verbatimly says that a fight against him looked unwinnable. But you know who does scale to this? Kobeni. Why? Because I said so. That's why.
I'm not seeing anyone right now. Guys are jerks.
God, I know, right? Guys are the worst.
These videos are gonna outlive me, you know. Alright, but moving on to Makima's most useful aspect, we're gonna have to talk about her hacks. Makima is literally the control devil, and her most useful ability is to merely take over anything that she finds to be inferior to herself, making said being pretty much a pawn to her use. Makima also has some pretty horrible durability, as she consistently gets nagged by gunshots, and she's shown to sustain critical injury from a chainsaw by the end of Chainsaw Man Part 1. I bring this up because her second ability makes up for the fact kind of, as due to her contract with the Japanese Prime Minister, any death blow that she were to receive would be transferred to a Japanese citizen in either the form of an accident or an illness. During the 1990s, around 123 million plus Japanese people were citizens. So due to this, she kind of has a pseudo form of immortality. Alright, so what can Goku do against this? And let's tackle her control ability at first. Makima notes that she would have to beat the Chainsaw Man in order to completely perceive him as inferior to herself. Due to Makima's base stats, this is simply impossible. But even if you want to argue that it's passive or something like that, it would end up not even mattering in the slightest, fast. As established in the Buu Saga, mental attacks that put the user under the control of another weaker user can just be negated via sheer power. And Goku has more than enough power to spare. So if Makima was to try to turn him into a pawn, he would literally just shrug it off with his power. And from there, he would solidify the sentiment of her being not as good as him by immediately blitzing and one-shotting her. But from there, we can have to talk about her contract, which says that any blows to her would just be transferred onto Japanese citizens. And Goku's just so fast that he can easily kill her once per citizen in Japan. It might take like 15 minutes and be pretty boring, but he can certainly get it done. He's just that fast. But there's a much more efficient way for Goku to get rid of Makima, as if we were to talk about current Goku, he could easily utilize something like Hakai, which is a form of existence erasure, which is arguably superior to the way in which she was disposed of in the manga. Goku's off to a tremendous start, 2-0 with relative ease. So let's move on to the king of curses himself, Sukuna, the guy who killed Gojo. He's not coming back, by the way. Alright, before I start off scaling Sukuna, I want to thank the Overseer of Fiction. You may or might not know him as the Overseer. You might know him for his Jurassic Park and dinosaur analysis videos, but recently he's branched off into fiction, where he scales a whole lot of verses including SCP and Jujutsu Kaisen. So when me, a guy who hasn't watched or read the show, knew I needed to scale it, I wasn't worried because I knew a guy. So if at any point you think what I'm saying is interesting, be sure to support his channel. Once again, big shout out to you, and let's get into the scaling. Alright, consistently for a nice baseline for Sukuna, he would be around small C level, as he was able to obliterate Makugora. I haven't watched the show, give me a break. But more notably anyways, he was able to destroy a huge chunk of Shiba Boy. More notably, he was able to destroy a huge chunk of the city via his domain expansion, which would get around to small city level. Moving on to his speed now, where Sukuna would be anywhere from hypersonic to even light speed. The higher ends of speed come from Kashimino, who, confirmed by the narrator, utilizes electromagnetic waves. Generally speaking, electromagnetic waves are around light speed. Sukuna was able to react to Kashimino and overwhelm him, so he would scale to that speed pretty easily. Granted, this is kind of a higher end. I think much more consistently, you could argue around high to massively hypersonic, but he's going up against Goku. Come on, give it to him. But moving on to Sukuna's abilities now, and he utilizes two curse techniques. One is his dismantle attack, and his secondary attack is his cleave, which strength can be adjusted depending on the target's toughness. He can also utilize his cursed energy to perform invisible slashes, as even Gojo with 6 eyes could not see it. Alright, but moving on to his domain expansion, we're gonna have to talk about his domain shrine, which utilizes both his cleave and dismantle curse attacks in a very rapid successions. And with calculations, we can assert the rate of projectile slashes is equivalent to as low as 3 to even as high as 7 quadrillion cuts per second. And because the domain is open, it affects everything in nearly a 200-meter radius. Some people think that if you destroy the shrine, the domain will end, but this isn't actually the case, as it's stated that Sukuna is the one that keeps it up, meaning that theoretically, the only way that you could get him to cancel out the shrine is by damaging his body to the point where he just can't keep it up. And I hope I don't need to tell you guys that Goku would very easily be able to deal with this one, as he could simply just fly past a 200-mile radius and shoot a ki blast at him from a far range, and Sukuna wouldn't even really see him. Once again, he's literally millions, even billions times faster than the speed of light. It would take him literally milliseconds to do this. But even if Goku got caught in the domain expansion, these little twigs aren't going to do anything to him. They simply don't have the AP required to even make a Namek Goku flinch. Goku can literally no-cell attacks that can kill characters who are stronger than characters who can do this. I keep bringing this feat up, but you gotta remember, King Vegeta was literally in the center of this explosion. Vegeta surpassed King Vegeta as a child. Frieza goes on to kill Vegeta, and Goku goes on to take the exact same attack and smiles. So unless you wank Jujutsu Kaisen, there's no feasible way that Sukuna could ever injure Goku. But if you want to bring wank into the equation, and you try to attempt to run band for band with Goku, Sukuna's still falling short, as the spirit bomb that Goku utilized was stated to use all the power of the stars and planets of the Dragon Ball Z universe. The Dragon Ball Z universe has an infinite amount of stars, so this spirit bomb would have infinite energy in it. And Frieza at 60% could survive getting hit by it point blank. So let's just leave wank out the equation, because Goku's metas are arguably better and higher. But even if these knives could hurt Goku, he's literally just so fast that despite their ridiculous rate of fire, he would be able to unironically dodge them all. Being tens of billions times faster than the speed of light, you're gonna dodge most stuff in fiction, like on some Ultra Instinct timing. And from there, even a casual shot of Goku's ki will be more than enough to overwhelm, if not obliterate, Sukuna in his entirety, subsequently canceling out the domain as well. So Goku got this one negative to extreme low diff. Alright, now lastly, we get to talk about the God Hand. And base stats wise, they're not really too impressive. As a baseline, they'd be around City to Mount Level Plus. As all the members of the God Hand should all individually upscale Ganishka, who individually can conjure up storms with the cape of these clouds coming out to around 13 megatons, and the full kinetic energy of these massive storms coming out to a staggering 554.6 megatons of TNT, which is Mount Level Plus. But the highest thing I could find in them is them possibly scaling to the Crimson Behel, which most infamously caused an eclipse, which when calculated to no one's surprise gets to around moon level. Astro Speed now, they'd be around Massively Hypersonic, as they would all upscale Guts, who has multiple lightning dodging feats. So overall, base stats wise, they're pretty mid, but the reason I had them last is due to their hacks, and these guys by far give Goku the hardest time. All God Hand members should scale to each other, so when I talk about Griffith's hacks, just know this applies to all of them. Alright, and for starters, the God Hand aren't really tangible beings. They're more or less described to be abstract thoughts beyond physical reasoning, and this also grants them immunity to all physical attacks. The God Hand also have fate and causality manipulation, which means they have manipulation over cause and effect, being able to undo or redirect any attempted attacks so they don't get any damage. Skull Knight himself has also likened the Griffith to the author of a story, stating that the only chance to beat him is to be outside the story yourself. Obviously, this isn't some fictional transcendent stuff, it's just an analogy to support that the God Hand work on a higher level than most mortal beings in the verse. But what could Goku do against this? I want to note that current Goku would have no real issue, as he possibly scales the Beerus and blatantly just upscales most gods of destruction. Beerus can easily get rid of someone like Aurelie, who operates on some type of abstract existence as well, as she's a manifestation of the author's ideas and concept, and she herself doesn't adhere to the narrative or even the author in some cases. The gods also have a direct answer for causality manipulation, as they have a causality existence. This is shown during the Goku Black Saga, where Beerus was able to kill Zamasu. Beerus himself stated that not only did he kill that Zamasu, the one in Trunks' future should be gone as well. Trunks then notes that changing the past doesn't change the future, and then Beerus says that's mortal logic and it doesn't really apply to him. I want to note that this is very notable because the Dragon Ball universe has many split timelines, with them being birthed from even the most minor decisions. So the fact that Beerus' attack would have killed a very specific version of Goku Black that's in a different timeline would grant Beerus and all the other gods of destruction a causality type 4, which has resistances against stuff like fate manipulation and causality. I found an entire thread on the Versus Wiki about this very topic, so if that interests you and you want to learn more about it, it explains the subject much better than I could ever, so read it if you wanna. But yeah, modern Goku would have no problem, but what about Namek Goku? What's he gonna do? Well, honestly, Goku's much stronger than the God Hand, obviously, but their hacks might be a little bit too much for him. Where there's a will, there's a way. So I'm happy to report there is a way you can argue Goku will get past the God Hand's hacks, even as early as Namek Saga. And this would be via upscaling Aurelie. As previously mentioned, Aurelie doesn't adhere to logic or her own narrative to the extent that she beats the author on multiple occasions, and like the God Hand, she kind of operates on that same abstract idea level. And during Namek Saga, Goku and Frieza are noted to be the strongest individuals at this point in the series. So that would grant him upskilling Aurelie, whose hacks are like the God Hand, but just to a much tuned, forced, amped, and higher level. So while as Griffith is described to be like an author of a story, Goku using the current chain of scaling would arguably upscale his own author, granting him hacks resistance to anything the God Hand try to throw at him, meaning that Goku could drop in, decimate anything that the God Hand throw at him, and he would be able to beat them due to higher stats and speed. So in conclusion, with medium difficulty, Goku placed in the Eclipse would do fine.
You're the scum of the universe, and I'm getting sick of it!
If you made it to the end of this video, I'd like to thank you. As someone who makes weekly videos, I know that time is very useful. So the fact that you guys can spend the 10 to 20 minutes with me every week, it really goes a long way, and it gives me the inspiration to keep going. Whether you're new here or you just subbed 10 minutes ago, thank you. And hey, if you subscribed 10 minutes ago, why don't you click that subscribe button, you know, like... This video was also pretty unique because I scaled 4 anime that I never scaled on the channel before. And I guess for today's question, I'm gonna ask, is there any other anime you would like to see me scale on the channel? What do you want to see? Put it in the comment section. If it gets enough support, hey, maybe I'll do something with it. But you guys know me. I'll see you guys next week. But until then, stay big G fans.